Good evening. Good evening, everybody. It's going to be 10 p.m. I've logged in a little early, so I'll wait for everyone else. All right. Good evening, everybody. It's 10 p.m. and we are on a Monday evening. So you're here with me for must read books, and I am reading a book by Kaveree Bamzai. It's called No Regrets. It looks like this, the cover. And this book, I found it very, very fascinating because it covers so many different aspects from a woman's life, be it work, be it children, be it yeah, issues at the workplace, and related to money, so many things that she has discussed. But in each of these issues, all she's trying to say is that do not regret, do not regret, and don't blame yourself. So, this is not a self help book, it's a book that tells us what not to do, what to remember, and what to forget. From being a mother to lessons learned from our own mothers, managing money to marriage, coping with pain and anger, to taking ownership of our own health and growing old. Kaveri Bamzai, the first woman editor of one of India's largest news magazines, a wife and a mother of two boys and two dogs, tells us how to live a guilt-free life with a little help from a host of highly accomplished women. With sparkling advice from Naina Lal Kidwai, Ariana Huffington, Sudha Murthy, Smriti Irani, Twinkle Khanna, and Sanem Mirza, among others, No Regret is a go to book as we fumble and stumble through life. So, before I begin reading chapter 9 of this book, which talks about money, so go to war on money, I wanted to also tell you a few things. We will be doing these reading sessions in the month of June, and we will pick up on a book which we feel is very interesting. And I will talk about what that book is all about with an introduction, maybe read out a chapter that I find very important or fascinating from the book. And we will do it for different industries. So, whether it is for communications, public relations, or it has got to do with financial investments, mutual funds, it could be spiritual books, and it could be any bestseller for that matter that is doing really well. So I'm going to talk about these books, which I feel are must-read books, well-curated books, and I'm open to branding or sponsorships for this property. So I call upon all the brands to have something like this if they feel that it is in sync with their brand ethos, brand values. Then let's do this together, and this particular series will be shot from a professional environment. So I'm doing it currently from my home. So I have dogs in my house. They also like sometimes bark in between. So those kind of distractions will be not there. So we will do it in professional environment, and we'll shoot this series, and we will do appointment listening. So, for example, instead of doing a everyday reading session, I will take it up on a particular day of the week at a particular time. So, depending on the industry that you're from and your area of interest, we can synergize on this property and take this forward. So this is something that I wanted to share with you all. And today we are going to talk about this chapter 9. So let's start reading without giving it more time on just general chit chat. Okay, so it's an odd thing in India. Women who are lucky enough to survive the vagaries of being born and giving birth in a male dominated society manage to outlive the men. That's a good thing because women are built for greater resilience, but not such a good idea when you look at the financial independence. Even women who work consistently throughout their careers don't spend enough time thinking about their retirement and how they will finance it. In India, especially, there still lingers the old-fashioned notion that the children will take care of parents. But delayed adolescence, mounting college fees, and increasing likelihood of divorce have meant that women should have to shoulder financial responsibility themselves. In many ways, this is the last bastion of patriarchy. Even women who earn tend to either hand over their salaries to their husbands or their in laws or run joint accounts, which is all very well when things are going well, but not so good when they are not. So in the West, there is now an entire genre of entertainment dedicated to women who are cuckolded by men and cheated out of their savings. Think Nicole Kidman's capable lawyer in HBO's Big Little Lies, who gives up the practice for the love of her life, a traveling salesman who turns out to have a violent and abusive streak. When she leaves, she does so systematically, renting a house and then eventually selling their house and other properties to set up a trust fund for the children. Her in the news BBC hit Keeping the Faith, heroine finds her husband and business partner has not just cheated on her sexually, but is also hiding a vast sum of money he has acquired through illegal means. And yet, in yet another popular TV series, Younger, a woman whose ex husband gambles away their earnings is forced to go back into the workforce by pretending to be 26 years old because no one wants to hire a 40 something woman in publishing, especially if she hasn't worked in over a decade. Her one aim to pay for her teenage daughter's tuitions. It's charming but also sad given the reality of ageism, sexism globally. When I began my career in 1987 as a sub editor with the environmental news service of Nehru Foundation for Development in Ahmedabad at a princeless sum of rupees 699, I remember feeling rich. I was staying at home, so would use the money to treat my friends, buy things for the house, and occasionally clothes for myself. The last was mostly due to having spent a deprived childhood like most middle class families in the 70s and 80s, living on the generosity of friends' hand me down, hands hand me downs. If I could go back in time and save from then on, I would, especially now that I know my husband invested rupees 10,000 in 1990 before we got married in HDFC shares, which are now worth 10 lakhs, among other financial prudent decisions. Achin Taroda, a very bright accountant, has some healthy advice for working moms like me. Money never sleeps. We do, so we should make it work longer and harder than we work for it. Women need to plan earlier for retirement since they live longer than men and their retirement corpus needs to be bigger than that of men. Between the age of 25 and 40, women should invest 70% of their savings in equity funds linked to market, 30% in liquid funds for contingencies. This is really important. I once had borrowed from my driver, who I'm convinced has better savings than I, and when my husband was away and my older boys had to be hospitalized for a head injury caused by a badly aimed flower pot, it sounds funny in recall, but it was not, particularly then. Later in their working life, they should invest 20% of their income in SIP, systematic investment plan, and target a corpus they would need by the time they retire. Apart from the healthy insurance cover given by the respective organizations, women should have a separate individual health insurance cover as well. In this uncertain job scenario, a separate cover comes in handy when the need arises. Save first, a certain target amount and then spend with what remains. Shop during sales and never forget to bargain. Bargaining can be used in the workplace as well as by asking for a pay hike or raise at existing or new job. Prioritize, spend only on what is absolutely necessary. Do you really need that piece of jewelry or that sari or the subscription at the gym class you've not been to for 2 months? Always look for a side hustle. This last point is something financial planners all over the world tell you to do. If you want to afford anything, says a financial planner, Paula Pant, who you have to create several streams of income. This can be either from be a rental income or an additional job that you can do from home or a small business. I have a younger colleague who quit working full time, taking on flexibility of 2 days work week so she could start a small baking business. I asked Nirmala Kumar, a management guru, for advice on managing money. He believes in five principles. First, aspire for financial independence from your spouse failing, which have an independent bank account. Don't try to be too oversmart and pick individual stocks as even the professionals cannot beat the index. Given point two, while picking mutual funds to invest in, select based on those that have the lowest expense ratio. Understand the difference between investments, stocks, bonds, real estate that yield an underlying stream of income, be it dividend, interest, rent, consumption, even if touted as investment, jewelry, and art. Do have an exercise regime as healthy long life is the goal rather than simply a long life with substantial healthcare cost. Financial hygiene, as it is now popularly known, which our mothers taught us was balancing the budget, is something women are not intrinsically comfortable talking about, either at work or at home. In both places, I suspect it makes them appear to be alpha females and they'd rather play the traditional beta female to the alpha male. As usual, I found a study online that proves this time. A workplace benefit report by Bank of America Merrill Lynch says 61% of women they studied would rather talk about their own death than money. Women, the report says, are 14% more likely than men to feel stressed about their financial situation and 13% less likely to be optimistic about the future financial situation. I asked my longtime friend Anju Mohan, who has had a variety of jobs from journalism and hospitality to finally director of communications at Ashoka University, about what rules she followed. She still recalls the time when, after divorce, she quickly got labeled as poor Anju, and from a beloved person, I became a non-entity. Mohan promised herself that she would make her and her daughter's life independent, respected, and financially secure. It could be done only by working harder and saving smarter. My parents were supportive and they lovingly raised my daughter too. I basically focused on the job. What I didn't understand, I asked. What I didn't know, I read papers and journals on marketing to find out. I asked questions, I clarified with people who worked with me. I also made sure that I was the first person anyone would think of when they wanted someone reliable and who delivered on the deadline. I'm happy to say that I have always seen the big picture. In my life, I've made financial plan. The first was simply to be able to save on a small salary. Someone unknown gave me a great advice: learn to save first, even if it is just 100. I did just that, and it was just such a sense of accomplished when I saved 5,000. It immediately gave me a sense of security. Today, through 23 years of work and focused planning, I've managed to give my daughter a credible education, made some long term investments, and ensure that I'm not financially dependent on anyone. My principles, it is very important to list the essentials from the luxuries because we can all do without luxuries for a while. Bring in a frugal way of thinking because if you have been lavish with your money, it will take a while to learn to cut back. I took buses instead of auto and autos instead of a cab. Do not scrimp on yourself. Spend on good quality clothing and a smart haircut. It is essential to look presentable and confident. Clothes, hair, makeup do the job. It may sound trivial, but it's not. A crushed cotton kurta will not win you a place at the top table. Save every week. Take out what you think you will need in a week: fuel, food, groceries, fresh vegetables. Make a list and stick to it. No need to go out for expensive organic jam just because it is on sale. Put that money aside in your house expense envelope. At the end of the month, you will also find you can buy the jam after all. Start a saving account for your child. The earlier the better, and ensure that the money gets deducted directly from your salary into it. At the end of the year, put it into a tax saving instrument on which you get highest returns. Do this for 10 years or till maturity of that fund. Say the National Savings Certificate and then reinvest the whole amount without being tempted to pinch a few thousands from it. Rule of thumb: one third of your salary for expense, another one third for savings, and the final third for investments. Usually, when the child goes to school, the third for the savings get tighter, but you should be unrelenting about investments. Work towards an asset like a house or a flat. I heard about it purely by chance that there were beautiful flats in Gurgaon. A close friend had bought one for himself, and I was drawn to that kind of urban living. It had taken me the better part of my 5 years to create a small nest egg, and my friend pushed me to go for it. I was in a permanent job by then, and I caught the first wave of the easier credit industry. Even then, I couldn't get a home loan on my own, and my father had to co guarantee it. I got nightmares for a year. Read the financial papers. I'm no great financial wizard, but I know how to make a financial decision which matches my capacity and what I'm comfortable with. For example, floating loans were the norms when I took the housing loan for myself, but I was adamant about a fixed rate. I wanted to plan for the future, knowing that I had X amount of going outgoing for 20 years, and then I could focus on the rest. The fixed rate was always higher but I didn't change my mind in the face of much laughter. In 5 years, the banks changed their policy and the floating rates bloated installments. I could have had the last laugh, but I knew how tough it was to make such payments and I could only commiserate. So choose what works best for you. Create a liquid fund which you never touch, not even when you're dying. An emergency fund is absolutely essential with small children. Sickness, broken bones, sudden expenses, or just pure inflation can put an end to the best laid plans. Get health insurance for yourself and the children. The quicker the better. Don't say that the company pays for it. Are you sure you will have this job when you are 60? A long term insurance plan with no claims will work out much cheaper. Take professional advice on tax saving. Don't go by what your finance guy who deducts TDS says. The government has given many options to claim benefit. Make great use of PF, Provident Fund, and PPF, Public Provident Fund. You can save more than 12% in it, and this forced saving will ensure that even when you get over budget, a nest egg is building on the side. Don't be afraid to say too expensive choices, no to expensive choices, or give in to the peer pressure. A dinner out, a holiday, drinks, sari shopping, it may feel like a pang that you are not in the same league. And a status conscious city like Delhi can really be cruel, but don't let it bring you down. Stick to what you earn, like a tortoise, pull in your limbs to be secure in a disposable salary that you have. It will give you a peace of mind. Stay away from credit card debts. That one is a veritable monster. While spending, either use cash as planned in your budget or a debit card. Never both. You will find that you have finished it all and nothing left. Give yourself a long term happiness goal. If I complete X savings, Y education support, and Z emergency fund, I will treat myself to a short holiday. Life is not just about scrimping or sacrificing, or you will end up being unhappy and bitter. I wanted a complete, secure, and happy life where I was solely responsible for the good and the bad. So, Vani Kola, who is a serial investor and one very, very smart woman, has made 40 investments in the last 8 years in various startups, and nearly 10% have had women CEOs or co founders. Among the business, the 55 years old has supported our Snapdeal, Urban Ladder, Zivame, and the founder and the MD of Kalari Capital believes women have to be open and aggressive about their ambition and have to ensure they build a healthy network while in the mid-management level so they can have the flexibility to work from home, work fewer hours, or simply start their own venture. None of this can be done without the basic principle of woman helping other women. Kola says financial literacy among women is low because they are conditioned to not think about themselves and are habitually givers rather than takers. And they tend to be intimidated by finance, leaving it to their fathers and husbands. Kola has a simple but effective policy, philosophy. So take ownership of your money. This means not merely earning money, but also planning it. Women have to understand that they're not being disloyal or selfish when they start taking control of their money. It's not that they ought to be not to contribute to the family income, but just that they should not put it in the black box that should not ever be opened. Women have to articulate the desire and find the tools to know how, where, what, how much to invest. Women need to be goal oriented. You can be planning for a car, home which will yield rental income, or a child's education, or even retirement. I cannot overemphasize the importance of long term financial planning for emotional and mental well being. It's never too early. Babylon wasn't born in one day. You have to start saving as soon as you earn. Teach financial literacy to your children. I have two daughters and I got them to create saving accounts when they were young. My older daughter was 8, and when she started saving, she would do odd jobs, and I told her if she saved that money, I would put an equal amount in her bank like a EPF, Employee Provident Fund. For the younger one, I created an equity account putting away 10% of any money she got as gifts into it. The idea was to create a habit of saving, allowing them to understand the pleasure of watching money grow. Now that they're older, I expect them to manage their own accounts. Save for when Save for when you may want to quit. There is no right frame to become an entrepreneur. It is usually when one is seized by an idea that one is so passionate about that one has no choice but to do it. But money cannot be defining factor for any business. Yes, the incentive system has to do with the money, but one usually starts a business because one believes in this idea. As anyone sees, one has ever been as anyone who has ever been in the business knows, you are your own Princess Charming, with a healthy bank balance to afford the white steed. So when you're talking about money, I know, like as a part of the Wiki PR and Digital Council, we had done a partnership, a collaboration with FinLabs, and that was to empower women with the financial literacy on how to make the most of their money. And I've seen Monica Halan also doing great work in this field. She's already out with her two books on this, and again, very simple read, and it's really nice. I think every woman should pick up that book too, and read on how they can invest in mutual funds and how they can save or make better investments from the money they earn. But having said that, Kaveri, what she is doing through her book and through the advice that she said, is not just about how to make money from money. It is about also that what are the best practices, uh, not only for investments but also to save money, and to use money in the best possible ways. So it's not purely investments, right? Now, managing marriage, this is chapter number 10. The best advice I got when I declared my intention of getting married to my then boyfriend and now husband was from a wonderful teacher at Delhi School of Economics. Veena Dua was a brilliant sociologist and taught me to adore the subject. She died towards the end of my postgraduate degree, but not before I was ready to leave. Even in the last stages of chemotherapy, she would come to the university and offer advice, both personal and academic. To whoever sought it, a few years later, her husband, the ever amiable H.K. Dua, would become my boss at the Indian Express. I remember confiding in Mrs. Dua, and her counsel to me was, people are always falling in love. Please don't do that. Please rise in love and show even more focus and determination in your academic and professional life. One of my greatest regrets is that she wasn't around to see us getting married. She was my life dollar part friend, part guide, part philosopher, and all role model. I believe now that there are various kinds of wedding dollars to help ease the growing pain of the fretful bride. She's supposed to be the best buddy, parent, therapist, and wedding planner, someone who exists to provide marriage mindfulness. That's a new concept. I'm hearing it for the first time. And to think at my wedding in 1993, I had only aunts and senior colleagues giving me all kinds of advice. Wear more lipstick, don't smile so much, try to look bashful, sit up straight in your chair on the stage. You know, one of those hideous large chairs which are decorated with flowers strategically placed within a heart. No subtly is not something Indian weddings do. I survived that, as did my husband, and only to land up on a honeymoon in Kathmandu, where we ran out of money on our second last day and had to borrow from our owner. Credit cards were fairly new then, and in any case, we didn't have a bank balance worthy of such luxury. The odd thing was that the man actually gave us the money and waited for a month till we could afford to pay him back. I could have definitely done with financial whisperers then. Since then, a lot has happened to us: jobs won, jobs lost, two sons, the joys and pains of watching them grow and make their own mistakes, friends gained, friends discarded voluntarily or by choice, death of a beloved parent each, and a family house sold, and two frisky dogs who have managed to chew through the furniture in our once spanking new home. I've learned to take everything on the chin, or shall we say chins, given the rather generous waistline I have acquired over the time. On most days, I have acquired a certain kind of equanimity. On the other days, I am veritable, irritable, and screaming banshee. I am now the sole female in a house dominated by men, of all ages and species. My only solace is my domestic help, who does the chores from 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. and has become the only person who can tell me the following things: whether I'm looking okay before I step out of the house and don't have a giant piece of leaf stuck in my teeth, or hair that looks like it's been set by a finger in the electric socket, rather than encounter with a hair dryer or a jacket that doesn't look slept in. She is my go-to person to complain about being neglected by men of the house, which includes cook and the drivers. Yes, as my friend once said it, all you need to live comfortably in Delhi is a cook, driver, and the membership of a club. What they didn't tell you is that you end up spending your entire salary on that. More than 25 years of after marriage, I can safely say we have survived, and for now. So the early days of romance, even just traveling by the same bus, even though we lived quite a distance from each other, seemed like an adventure. When a date meant eating the greasy anda paratha behind the Indian Express building in ITO after a night shift, and when the heart to heart meant talking about Karl Marx while listening to Richard Marx. What can I say? I've always had this terrible taste in music. Children change the equation, of course they do, and in our case, two boys did. And we had them, and when I was 31 and 36, which meant we had endured 4 years of marriage, which people asking us when we would give them the good news. A question that can only elicit an eye roll in response. We have had our moments, good and bad, but largely we have had each other's backs through worries about job security, boys' education, and end of the month financial squeeze, which seems to come in the middle of the month now. No marriage is like any other, and in my mind, there are different kinds of wives. There's a good wife, the Laura Bush standing by her man no matter what, epitomized by Curtis Sittenfield's American Wife. She's the one who believes good manners means accommodating the person you were with. In her case, it refers to Charlie, a man who recovered from alcoholism by discovering Christianity, a man she stands by through thick and thin, and even if she abhors his politics. Then there is Mommy Wife, who dedicates her entire life to her husband, mothering him, nurturing him, enabling him. Yes, that is the wife played by Glenn Close in the movie version by Meg Wolitzer. The fictional Joan Castleman puts her own writing ambitions on hold to support her husband Joe, who is one of those men who own the world, who has no idea how to take care of himself or anyone else, and who derives much of his style from Dylan Thomas' Handbook of Personal Hygiene and Etiquettes. One of the America's best known writers, Joe, is about to receive the Nobel Prize for Literature in Helsinki Helensky, and the wife, a promising writer in her youth, has completely sublimated her own ambition for him, convincing her that she is a kingmaker and she could so easily have been a queen. As Castleman says in the book, which is ferociously exposition of delayed feminine rage, everyone needs a wife, even wives need wives. Then there is a vengeful wife, which is a new and thriving genre in the world of fiction. The amazing Amy of Gillian Flynn, Gone Girl, is forced to move from glamorous New York to Carthage, Missouri, cheated upon by her slacker husband, suffocated into a straitjacket by her longtime admirer, and generally rendered a shadow of her own cool girl self. The wrong wife of the BBC One's drama, Dr. Foster, whose husband cheats on her, abandons her, tries to turn their son against her, and then gets his comeuppance. A scene where Suran Jones, Dr. Foster, drowns her wedding band in acid is chillingly real. And the most bitter of them all, Martha of Edward Albee's Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which I read as a young woman and which I clearly didn't understand completely, otherwise it would have cured me forever marriage. Martha and George's rage over his lack of promised success, over her inability to have a child, and over their combined talent of getting under each other's skin is perhaps one of the most explosive portraits of dysfunctional marriage. I was always struck by the fact that Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton divorced soon after, only to remarry and divorce again, and yet, oddly, if ever there was a perfect husband, it was described by Martha, George, who is good to me and whom I revile, who can hold me at night so that it's warm, and whom I will bite so there's blood, who tolerates which is intolerable, who's kind which is cruel, who understands which is beyond comprehension. I like this line, someone who understands you beyond comprehension. And how many husbands or how many spouses or wives do that? What makes us persevere with marriage even when our icons fail us? I'm not even speaking of celebrity marriages whose hyphenated couplings and uncouplings that crowd our social media. I'm speaking of people we know whose photos we see on Facebook or Instagram. Examples of picture perfect marriages which often end in acrimony or unhappiness. Marriage is a partnership where ideally each partner has equal privileges and responsibilities. The privileges are several: lifelong companionship, usually assured sex, and constant support. The responsibilities all work required to ensure the above. It isn't always easy, even if you are Anita Carville, a senior IAS officer. Carville was 26 when she married her batchmate from Indian Police Services in 1989. Their older daughter was born in 1991 and the younger one in 1993. For the first 10 years of their marriage, they were often separated due to transfers of different locations. There was a pattern to it. The moment we would be together and start to feel settled, one of us would get transferred out. My husband was a very effective police officer right from the beginning. He was transferred at the drop of a hat to any place where firefighting was required. Later, it became intermittent. We even managed to stay longer together for a stretch of 4 years in the same place, she says. So, what are the secrets of successful marriage? Okay, I want all couples to please pay attention to this part. Carvel is loath to say, but looking at her life, it is easy to list the lessons. Take turns to be the primary caregiver. In the initial years of marriage and specifically after the children, I felt that I was not able to cope with multitasking. My husband, being a police officer, was busier than I. Every crime and law and order situation in his area was his responsibility. He hardly came home. I never grudged my husband's lack of time. I understood his pulls and pushes. I too had a very tough job. But as a mother, I compromised a lot for the children by taking leaves as often as possible. In the early days of my career, I was known as a sincere and effective officer as long as she is not on leave. I brought up the children literally single handedly till they were about 8 or 10 years old. And 10 years old. Till then, I did not give my best to my job, and I have no regrets. After those initial years, my husband almost took over from me, and I've once again started getting enough time for my reading, writing, music, movies, badminton. When it was his turn once again to take some time off, he decided to scale Mount Everest in 2008, and I supported him all along. It was his dream, something he wanted to do for over 2 decades. He went on to become the first civil servant, police officer, bureaucrat of India to have scaled the Everest. Till this date, when he gives motivational talks, the question that is always asked, how did your wife allow you to do this? And my husband always replies, because she's special. Have a sense of humor. I believe it requires a very large hearted, loving, and giving dispension on both sides to make a marriage successful. It takes a sense of humor to last out. There will be problems, there will be challenges, there will be unforeseen issues, but as long as there is a resolve that this marriage is worth it, it will stand the test of time. The family that plays together stays together. In the initial years of my career, I used to take leave often to ensure that the four of us stay connected. We would do a lot of adventure sports, trekking, swimming, scuba, etc., together with the kids. My husband took a lot of interest in developing a sense of connection with nature for the kids. We would often take off weekends to do our thing. Both my daughters are marathoners, scuba divers, accomplished at water sports. Both are pursuing higher studies in USA, and I think what we did together as a family kept the connection strong and alive even though we did not stay together often. Love each other. There is no substitute for that. Success is what the mind believes is success. For a little child, writing the first letter of the alphabet may be success. Whereas for an adult illiterate woman, being able to sign her own name could be success. I think that success should never be a generic definition. Each one of us hold define success in their own ways. My marriage is a happy one. There is no tension, there are no hidden or suppressed feelings, no conflicts that are not resolved immediately. But all this is did not happen overnight. We both worked at it through thick and thin. Sometimes I said sorry and sometimes Atul did. Ours is a marriage where we love each other's company and our children's company as well. The four of us together feel complete, there's nothing missing. And these days, we miss the children immensely, yet the two of us love our life together. Whenever the children would ask me, who's your favorite, I always told them, your dad. And they would make fun of me in their growing years about this. Today, when they are in their mid 20s and they give out the example to their friends, my oldest daughter's best friend, parent, were considering divorce. And she was shattered, and our daughter told us how much she valued the fact that her parents love each other. She got a tattoo of two triangles struck at the base made on her ring finger to represent her parents. This is my definition of success. But what are the mistakes we usually make in our marriages? First, we try to remake a spouse, forgetting what we loved about them in the first place. The extreme case is Lady Macbeth, who forced her husband to wrest the crown, making him act out of character. Second, we try to reinvent ourselves sometimes, leaning so far backwards to try to appease our spouses that sometimes we fall on our backs. Third, we forget that the marriage is to the entire family, whether you like it or not. You can choose your husband, but you cannot choose the family he comes with, especially the mother in law. Hindi films are full of examples of this from Waqt to Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum. Fourth, we forget that we can never fully know each other, no matter how much we love them. Remember Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca? And last, we need to remember that marriage is usually for the keeps, and the older we are getting, the longer it will last. If we were if we aren't kind, compassionate and empathetic to each other, we will never last the course. And frankly, who has the energy to do it again? One of the most important decisions in marriage is when to have children, if at all. My experience is you'll know when you're ready for it. And when I asked tennis ace Sania Mirza, who became the mother recently at the age of 31, what was the moment she decided she wanted to become a mother. She said, we had been thinking about a child for some time. Then I got injured and was on an indefinite forced break. And that was when we thought that was a good time as anyone to get pregnant, and God obliged us. Did she worry about the impact on her game? She said she did and started planning ahead, applying for a protected ranking to use and help her whenever she decided to make a comeback after delivery. Susania Mirza's top lessons on managing marriage, children, and career. The birth of a child is the start of a life. For a mother, not the end. The career can take a backseat for a while, but it is possible to resume once the child is slightly older. It may not be practically possible to get back to the level one was at in the tennis before I became pregnant, but there's nothing that will stop me from attempting to play at the highest level of the game. It is important for me to to myself that I can combine my career and a personal life. Post tennis, I look forward to spending more time together as a family and will look out for another career. The child must always be given top priority, and that does not mean that the mother should give up all her career dreams. The child should be an inspiration to achieve more rather than an excuse to give up the career. Women are good at multitasking and they must use this talent to expand their working capacity through better time management. So we'll take a break. I'll have my coffee. You can also have a coffee or sip coffee or water, whatever you like. The next chapter is my personal favorite because just the headline kind of struck, it just clicks with me. And I think we should be thinking about it. Yeah. So I'll just talk about next one, right? In some time. It's really hot in Delhi. It's super hot. We are just waiting for the rains, and even the ACs have stopped working properly. It seems. Okay, so we are moving on to chapter 11, my favorite. Anger and laughter both leave lines. So you want to leave lines on your face of anger or laughter. At a recent literature festival in Pune, I was asked what makes me get up every morning. Resisting the obvious answer, which is the alarm clock, I said it was anger. Indeed, there is much to be angry with the world right now, and after the discussion, a series of young women reached out to me saying they felt the same. Now, one young man rushed up to me as I was leaving, introduced me to his life partner, though to me they both looked severely underage, and said she was angry all the time. But he was trying to counsel her and indeed would spend a lifetime doing so. Sweet child, I thought to myself, you really don't know what you're in for. As the history of women's movement in India and elsewhere has shown that female rage is a powerful force. It can burn us and everyone else around us. It comes from the place deep within, from a lifetime of suppression and of not being able to express our rage. Actor and activist Tracy Ellis Ross expressed this beautifully in a recent TED talk, asking women to acknowledge your fury, give it a language, and share it in a safe place of identification in the safe phase. Our fury, she went on, is not something to be afraid of. It holds lifetimes of wisdom. Let it breathe and listen. Nurture your anger, look after it, listen to it, and articulate it. Women the world over are doing just that, and India is no exception. Much of the Me Too campaign or the movement in India, as elsewhere, is powered by this silent fury at being invisible and voiceless for so long, of feeling so powerless or so helpless, or of not having enough agency or indeed self confidence. The more I read, I find anger has been such a robust propeller of so much good. Read The Gift of Anger by Arun Gandhi, the Mahatma's grandson who spent 2 years as an adolescent with his famous grandfather at his Vardha ashram. Wow. So we have the grandson of Mahatma Gandhi. Among the 10 lessons from the modern world, he lists his number one as use anger for good. The Mahatma would tell his young ward, anger to people is like gas to the automobile. It fuels you to move forward and get to a better place. Okay, I'm not going to be feeling sorry or regret for the anger that I throw at people. Without it, we would not be motivated to rise to a challenge. It is an energy that compels us to define what is just and unjust. Urging his grandson to keep an anger journal, and Mahatma said, when we channel electricity intelligently, we can use it to improve our life. But if we abuse it, we could die. So, as with the electricity, we must learn to use anger wisely for good of the humanity. It is this anger that drove Banwari Devi, a so called unlettered Dalit Santhin for the Rajasthan Women Development Program, into protesting against her gang rape in 1992. Women's activists and lawyers propagated the view that Banwari attracted the ire of her rapist solely on the basis of her work, which was advocacy against child marriage. A number of groups which championed her view filed a public interest litigation in the Supreme Court of India under the collective platform of Vishakha. The judgment was seen as a significant legal victory for women groups in India, even through Banwari Devi's own struggle for justice continues. Even as two of the accused have died in the interim, every story done on her continues to chronicle her courage and fearlessness, even amidst social ostracism. A BBC report from 2017 quotes her husband Mohan Lal Prajapat as saying, "Where, what is there to fear? They can kill us once, only once. They can kill us only once, but they can assault us repeatedly." And women in India discovered that when a physiotherapy student was gang raped in 2012 after returning from home after watching a movie with her boyfriend. In protest that rocked the nation, even as she lay fighting for her life and recording a detailed statement, women were galvanized as if by an invisible bond into demanding change. A judicial committee was set up to study and take public suggestions for the best way to amend laws to provide quicker investigation and prosecution of sex offenders. After considering about 80,000 suggestions, the committee submitted a report which indicated that failure on the part of the government and police were the root cause behind crimes against women. In 2013, the Criminal Law Amendment Ordinance 2013 was promulgated. Several new laws were passed, and six new fast-track courts were created to hear rape cases. The legal system continues to be tardy, but it has also empowered more women to report crimes against them. In 2018, one actor Tanushri Datta repeatedly allegations of sexual harassment against a male colleague, Nana Patekar, dating back to 2008. She found many more willing to listen to her in what is now becoming the definitive spark to the Me Too movement in India. It wasn't easy for Datta to speak up. As she told me, she told to me, as she told to me, I have been slapped with two legal notices. This is the price you pay for speaking out against harassment, humiliation, and injustice in India. I'm being threatened to be dragged into the legal system of India, which, as we all know, can keep a woman and her supporters, as well as media, silent on the pretext of the matter being sub judice, but can also be further used to harass her and drain her financially. In the end, an empty shell remains broken hopes and a life wasted defeat. This is the age old saga of survivors in our nation. So, but this is true. But it is this fury that ensures change. In her new book, Good and Bad The Revolutionary Power of Women's Anger, Rebecca Traister tracks the history of female anger from suffragettes marching on to the White House to workers vacating their buildings after Clarence Thomas was confirmed to the Supreme Court. Women's anger is condemned when they protest against the defeat of Hillary Clinton in 2016 presidential polls, despite Donald Trump's history of alleged sexual abuse, or in confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh as Supreme Court judge in 2018, despite Christine Blasey Ford's testimony that he had sexually assaulted her. As Trasters writes, we must come to recognize those of us who feel anger, who have in our life taken pains to disguise it, who worry about its ill effects, who rear back from it and try to tamp it down in ourselves for fear that letting it out will only hurt our goals. That anger is often an exuberant expression. It is the force that injects energy, intensity, and urgency into battles that must be intense and urgent if they are to be won. More broadly, we must come to recognize our own rage as valid, as rational, and not what we are told it is ugly, hysterical, and marginal laughable. As Soraya Chimeli writes in Rage Becomes Her, The Power of Woman's Anger, there is creativity in anger, and much anger is creativity. For her, writing has been a mechanism for converting powerful negative feelings into immensely satisfying and productive work. Writing led to her action clarity and community that was thinking and feeling as she did. Some people might call this anger management, but it is really a transformation according to her. For actor Nandita Das, anger was not a flaw, but rather an expression of her passion, commitment to social work, which she was trained in, as well as in acting, which she practiced. But becoming a mother changed something quite significant in the way she responded to people and happenings. As she says, I was fortunate that right from my childhood, I was encouraged to speak my mind and to be a fearless and honest. From my early college days up until now, my engagement with issues of social justice and human rights led me to participate in many marches, sign several petitions, and be on provocative panel. I have always argued fiercely on issues that I've deeply cared for, and probably my sense of entitlement to be angry came from that, and I felt it was warranted in fighting such battles. I actually did not know that there's so much behind Nandita Das. I only saw her as a brilliant actress till I actually read about her and watched few episodes here and there on television where she has spoken about her social work. So her friends, poet, peers, and family never saw her anger as a flaw, but rather as an expression of her passion and commitment. Nothing around her made her introspect about this emotion, despite the fact that she had never thought of it as a good quality in a person. She was aware that in anger, one tends to say things one doesn't mean, hurt where it hurts, and invariable it creates more friction. Not all, but a lot of what has changed since she started seeing a small reflection of her anger in her son, and that was alarming. Children emulate us, she says, so when we respond angrily and are righteous about it, they feel they too can respond similarly and when wronged. We as parents lose our moral right to stop them as we are the ones who set the precedent. So I began to have a conversation with my then 4-year old, and we decided that we will not be angry with each other, instead, find gentler ways to communicate. More often than not, the angry tone and the word distract from the real substance of the matter. Though in the moment we were often unsuccessful, we both continued with our efforts. And yes, at a very young age, children pick up, how the parents are dealing or behaving with them. And when you see a cute little child getting angry, it's not a good sight. It's definitely not a good sight. So that is when it hits us as parents that, okay, we need to step back, we need to rethink, and we need to change our course of behavior. Even if we feel very angry, we can't be so angry to an innocent little child. By the time he was 7, they had found many ways to remind each other not to be angry. It was heartwarming for her to see how a rude tone suddenly melted when the other smiled instead of reacting sharply. This process had a deep impact on her as she began to see how destructive and useless anger is. In fact, it helped her in her other relationships, be it personal or at work. Not only has it made her calmer, but it has also improved her communication with people, which in turn has been productive overall. I'm now also a better example around my child, she says. Okay, I think it's been almost close to 1 hour. So I'll just finish a little bit more of this and then we can close till here actually. I think we should just close till here because there's more in this chapter. and we can continue tomorrow from anger. I'm just going to tape this page. And after anger, Kaveri talks about pain in chapter 12, and she also encourages her readers to get up and get moving in chapter 13. So we'll take this up in our next session. Yeah. And I think after this session of tomorrow, we will have few more chapters left, which we will complete in the next few days. So this is good, and I am seeing so many things, so many facets that that are important, and these life lessons that are coming to us from a Sanya Mirza or from anybody else doesn't feel like it's coming from a celebrity. It feels like it's coming from very ordinary somebody who has seen life close, up and close, and which is why I'm able to resonate better to it. So I hope you also feel the same way, and do type in your comments in the comment box. Share your opinion with all of us here, so that we can make for better human beings and improve on whatever we can do better, but at the same time not putting ourselves in a tough place where we become very hard on ourselves, and live a life of no regret. I mean, living a life of no regrets also goes to say that be kind. Thank you on this note, and a good evening and good night to you.